Good. I'm not going to say good morning again. I'm going to say good afternoon, right?
That's right. Yep. Officially, it's the afternoon.
It
And so
is.
how has your day been so far?
Um, my day. My day has been wonderful. I've been sitting in this chair for roughly 4 or 5, yeah, 4 hours now because I've had back-to-back meetings with clients, back-to-back meetings with clients and and prospective clients and even with friends also. So it's been excellent. I say I connected one of them in a way. We'll get into that. That's how it's been today.
It's been
You
good.
you
Yeah, it's been back to back. It's, and I can say it's excellent. What I think, which I'm sure is probably going to turn into the body of what we're talking about, it's I think I start out every week this way. It's like, wow, it's been an interesting week. It's been really wild. Another roller coaster week, but in a different way. And I think that what I'm finding is the current trend, if I were to pick a pattern, is this kind of coming into more of a, this is what's going on. How are we going to choose to deal with it? Right? Because what I'm finding is a lot of this, we've made excuses a lot about, either behavior or, just an inability to be accountable, right? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm late. It was traffic. We just get used to this kind of allowing things to roll
mm-hmm.
based on excuses. I'm just going to call it that. And,
Okay.
So here we are in this critical time, and there's no right or wrong to it. And yet what I'm seeing is a lot of what I would normally categorize as bad behavior. I mean, just unkindness, people acting unkindly with one another, and people immediately saying, well, it's a hard time, they're under stress. Absolutely, 100%. It does not justify the behavior, however. And I think this is really the time that we need to start having that conversation, because if we don't, as things escalate and potential behavior escalates, we're going to be normalizing it, right? And I think whether we're talking about what we see on TV with, political stuff or, whatever, people have their different feelings about it. But I had a particular instance this week where it was interesting how the innocence of the information I was sharing, literally for consideration, as I always do, right? Like, here's
Gotcha.
a bit of information that's a little bit different than what's been shared. Again, it's for consideration. I'm not owning it as being right. I'm not saying that's even what I believe in. I'm just saying, wow, this is interesting. It's different.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's something to consider, or perhaps not.
Gotcha.
But what it was met with was nothing short of meanness. Mean, like really mean reaction. Not I don't understand what you're saying, or what are you saying, or no questions at all, just attack, just full on aggressive attack. And it was interesting because when it happened, it surprised me because it was in a small closed group.
Okay.
So it's not like something, I'm not a person who, well, I'm really not on social media except for business.
Gotcha.
A lot of people complain about that because my personal page, they're like, where's all your personal? I was like, I just don't spend time on social media. And so that's the irony, is I just happened to post something again with a group of people who I would consider myself relatively close to. I mean, I've been with them for over 5 years, just as a thought. And what it turned into was this thing that surprised me. Like I said, I kind of was like, well, I get that people are under pressure and everything, but nothing really justifies that behavior. People are like, well, they could have been in a bad mood. I get that, but it still doesn't justify that behavior. And so again, it's not so much for me to judge other person's behavior. What it did allow me to do was to say, okay, how do I want to be? Because it like I said, it was very aggressive. And our first ego reaction is to start, like, mine is to get, like, if I'm in ego and I'm attacked, it's to get kind of sarcastic.
Gotcha.
My less qualified side gets sarcastic. it's like, well, thanks for showing up. At least you showed up for something, you know? I mean, it's just, it's not nice, but
Gotcha.
it's kind of, I guess, passive aggressive would fall into the passive aggressive thing. And I don't want to be that person, right? It
Gotcha.
would be pretty
Gotcha.
easy and even justifiable, right? You attack me, I attack back. Like you attacked me first kind of thing. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think we are living in a world where we can do that anymore, because
Mm-hmm.
at the escalation of people's emotions, if one attacks and we attack back, it could potentially get really bad.
Yes.
And so it became actually a really beautiful practice in who do I want to be, not because I'm trying to prove a point or teach someone a lesson, but you know, who do I want to be in this moment? You know,
Mm.
I live in closest proximity with me,
Oh
which
my
means,
goodness. Yes.
right, I
Yes.
have to like
Yes.
that person. If I don't
Correct.
like me, there's gonna be problems. And so it actually, something that started off as kind of surprisingly uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
allowed for a conversation to be had, because I just kept coming back, you know, because the other piece is, do I engage, do I not engage, right? Do we just walk the other way? And, you know, what was calling me forward was to have a crucial conversation from a loving place, right?
Yes.
How can I justifiably and legitimately hold myself in a neutral, loving space towards this other person and engage in what could become, you know, a meaningful conversation,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Keep it about what it is, but also look at the brighter lining. It's like, okay, where do we learn how to do stuff? When we're challenged, not when
Correct.
we're comfortable,
Correct.
right? And so when people say don't engage, I'm like, but where else do we learn how to have crucial conversations?
Mm.
Where else do we learn how to be loving and kind and respectful, even if we don't agree? Where else do we learn how to do that? We learn it in the moment if we choose to take the moment to do it. If we don't engage, and I guess we get to pick our battles, right? This was a close, I wouldn't be doing this with someone I didn't know. I
Correct.
probably wouldn't engage. But with someone I know and I felt like I developed a relationship with, you know, that's a moment when we get to say, wow, like how much does this mean to me, right? This
Mm.
person's behavior is one thing. If I make it about the behavior in the storyline, I might be missing the greater opportunity to not only grow my own character, but to grow this relationship.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So I hear you. You know, strangely, I listened to someone speak last week, and it talked about this. And there are multiple things I'm hearing. I'm hearing one, the person, you, you give your 2 cents, and the person hears maybe 3 or 4 instead of 2. The jump off on a tangent on it, or misunderstanding where you're coming from. Uh, and so a couple of things ran to my mind. One was, as we are engaging, it's not even in this period, it's just anytime we engage, right? we are we don't know where these individuals are. We don't even know sometimes where we are, right? We have the tendency. I'm going to speak from point from yeah from an input input into me, right? So that I'm that person who heard you, and my reaction was that whatever you went through. We have there's something, brokenness. When we're broken, and we don't take care of brokenness, it manifests in so many different ways. It manifests in lust, it manifests in lies, it manifests in storming, right? The way we react to something that's very simple, right? It's distrust. So many different things that occur with brokenness, and we sometimes don't even think about it in terms of, I'm broken. That's why I'm behaving this way. And the talk went on to say, and I picked it up, and I was like, wow, let me see. My reaction when we're having a conversation and every single thing surrounds me, that's a sign of brokenness. So you're talking, and I'm like, oh, and you're talking about your day, and I said, wow, your day was, my day was, I did this, I did that, I did the other. that's a sign of brokenness, and we don't even know. It's so subtle. So the person is pushing back, and here's now from my end when I receive brokenness, because I know how to spot it. I become emotionally intelligent to say, I'm dealing with a broken person. So broken loves to break. So I'm not going to be broken by this broken person. So I'm not going to receive just what they're saying. So in criticism, they say always, even if it's coming from somebody you hate, you don't like, you dislike rather, it's hear what they're saying because there's something good in it for you. Right? So when broken comes for me and broken hits me, I'm going to say, okay, well, so broken, this person is broken. I see that's one of the signs. How can I help this person become unbroken? And it's always the answer. It's always with love. It's never, if they bring a Colt 45 to it, then I come and I bring a bazooka. Then they come and bring a tank, and then I come and bring an airplane, and then they bring the nuclear, and I'm like, oh man, this thing, what am I going to bring to this table? So it's always love covers all, right? And if you hit me hard, and as you said, it's so hard. I think one of our colleagues had, how can I be mature when I don't want to be? I think it was Kimberly Winborn who said that on her Facebook post, and I was like, man,
Yeah,
I
I
hate
saw
to
that.
be, I hate to be mature, because sometimes I just want to be immature and do the immature thing.
The
It's fun.
ego really wants us to fight back. Yes.
So in those conversations, I usually go, you know what? Since last week, but more so in the past, if someone hits me hard, wow, that was kind of a hard low blow. Just my way of coming back is I'm quiet, I think about it, and then I come and say, man, you did something that I really didn't like, right? I really didn't like what you did. Sometimes I'm sarcastic also, but with that new brokenness piece I've added to my toolbox, I'm not going to receive it. I'm not going to be hurt by it. And I'm going to speak to a couple people who may be listening, who will listen to this in the future or listening now, is when most of us are hurt by broken people, and then they come and break us in turn, and we take that brokenness and it perpetuates and keeps on going down the line, and we keep breaking people because of a simple fact that, had we known that that person was broken and they came to break me, I'm just going to be like, you're not going to break me, because what you're saying, you're speaking from brokenness. And it truly helps in our conversations and in life. That's my
Well,
two.
it's your 2 cents. It's your 2 plus 2 more that equals 4.
You
Um,
know.
it's funny because you're talking about broken. There's this beautiful song by Kelly Clarkson, Broken and Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And it talks about this thing. And that's kind of what was coming up when you were talking is, I think we're all broken right now. I mean, even at the very basic premise of the fact that our lives as we have known them has been broken.
Mm.
What I've been feeling is we're being called to being a higher level of self, even when broken. So it's one thing when we're not broken, and another, I mean, we're all broken. I mean, that's the point of her song, is I just want to be broken. I'm broken and beautiful, right? I'm perfect in my
Yes.
imperfection.
Correct.
And that we're all ultimately, working from wounded places potentially. But that's a choice. It's like the Buddhist tradition of the suffering and the pain arrow.
Mm-hmm.
Pain is inevitable. We're going to get hit with those pain arrows. Suffering is a choice. That means we're
Correct.
constantly going back to that pain and poking it, right? And making ourselves feel the pain over and over and over again, right? That's the same thing I feel here is that, we can be broken, but still act unbrokenly, right? Still
Mm.
act beautifully. And that's the piece is that, we don't have to be in an unbroken state, to deal out love and kindness to someone who's broken, because ultimately we're all broken.
Correct.
I think what we're really being asked to do is even though we're not better, act better, right? Even if we're broken, still we're being called to a higher level of interaction and engagement. Is it to engage aggressively or engage not at all? I don't think that's the answer. I mean, sometimes, if somebody's coming at me, I'll be mama, or my child, I'll be mama bear, and
Oh, yeah.
I can't promise what might happen. But,
Correct.
if somebody who I don't even know is trying to poke at me, I'm not going to engage. But I'm talking about the moments where, there is that opportunity to meet somebody where they are, but also where we are. It's like what you did was hurtful. Even if we don't say those words, is to say, I'm still going to engage with you because it's you I'm engaging with, not your behavior and not your brokenness. To me, that's love, right? Is to keep showing up, and say, because I choose to engage with you because you matter. Even in your bad behavior and brokenness, you matter. And that's why I'm engaging with you. To me, that's acting from love, not just giving this concept of love and generosity. That is really being love. And that's what I believe we are being asked to do. The other thing I see is that, for so long, there's, they talk about the yin yang concept, and some people refer to it as the masculine and feminine energies.
Gotcha.
And I'll never forget, it was so funny when I was working at the federal prison, and there's this one really manly guy, and he was in the group, and he struggled with some of the concepts of, like, being more soft and that kind of, he's like, but I won't be a man, kind of thing. And I remember one time I came in to talk to them, and they had a session with the clinical psychologist who ran the group the day before. He says, I've got a question for you, Miss Traci. He says, so Dr. Fraser is mentioning these concepts of masculine, feminine energy, and that we have masculine and feminine in each of us. And he says, I got to be honest, I'm struggling with this idea of feminine energy in me. Like, it just kind of, and I said, oh, okay. I said, I hear you. I said, so are you familiar with the principles of yin yang, from the Asian tradition? He says, yeah, it's the light and the dark and I said, okay, good. I said, it's the same thing. He says, oh, I said, it's just different language. Light, dark, masculine, feminine, yin yang. He goes, oh, okay, I'm good with it then. Just shift the language, right? Like, if you're not comfortable with the words, just shift it. But I think that for so many centuries, the concept of the typical masculine behavior, which is about action and creation and doing, has been in its more aggressive form, right? Control, aggression, manipulation, making things happen. Like we even say, I'm going to go make things happen.
Make it happen, yeah.
And the feminine, which is all about nurturance and acceptance and receiving, has also not necessarily been in its best form. It's been in submission and victimization and some of these less favorable, the underbelly of the positive. There's always the positive and negative within each energy. So I think we're also being called to look at that, where is, just because we've always been taught, power is force, right? If you're a leader and they're not doing as you're supposed to, force them to. Force, control them, control your children, control your, we've been taught that that's leading.
Dominion.
Control, right? Be in control. How can you be in control? And because it's been in this more, if you have to raise, you were talking about, I bring a machine gun, they bring a bazooka. Like, I mean, that if somebody brings something aggressive, you have to bring something more aggressive, right? That's what we've been taught. We've been spoon-fed on that for centuries.
Yes.
And I think we're being asked to do it differently.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
We really are. I was talking to a client and he said, I've been finding a really interesting shift in myself in the past where I have typically gotten aggressive during similar exchanges. He says, I've been finding myself putting myself more to core action and building my own foundation.
Wow.
So if something triggers me, instead of coming back at it and trying to control it, I've been shifting on how can I control my actions? How can I feel productive in my life? How can I build my foundation? And I'm like, you're transmuting the negative, you know, action orientation in that, you know, male energy to a
Correct.
positive form of it, right?
Correct.
Still action, still, you know, but not with the aggression, the control, the manipulation, and all that. So I think we're all being asked to kind of look at that in ourselves. And so when I met with that aggression, my first thought was, we can't keep doing this.
Mm.
You know, even as the feminine coming to the table, you know, my reaction of sarcasm would be aggression.
Hmm.
It's still in the same energy,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so it's like, okay, we can't afford this anymore. I mean, to your point of like, what's bigger than nuclear? I mean, nuclear is going to take us all out. There's nothing bigger than that. So like, there's nothing
It's
to bring to the table that's going to be more dominant
it's
to
it's gonna
nuclear.
it's gonna be biblical.
Right. And
uh,
that's not for us to do. Like that's
no,
not,
correct.
that's,
Correct.
you know, that's out of our lane. And I think that that's the point, is that, you know, we're seeing in our culture, even, I mean, our president, you know, I know we're not talking about political stuff here, but just
Correct.
a lot of people have a lot to say about how the
Hmm.
president of the United States is acting right now.
Hmm.
And I feel like that's kind of a reflection of what we're all dealing with under the surface, and maybe not so under the surface in some cases,
Mm.
is that we're
Mm.
all acting a little cray cray, you know, in certain areas of our lives potentially, right? The potential
Correct.
energy that we could feed into is the off the rails,
Hmm.
unless we choose otherwise,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
ultimately, what overcomes that goes back to what you said. It's having enough love
Hmm.
for the person, right?
Correct.
We start with the people we know, and then we extend it to the people we don't know, right? I think that's where we're kind of in boot camp right now.
I'm,
We're
I'm,
being
I'm,
given situations where we can start with the people in our who actually matter to us, you know, on a more personal level, so that we can learn to build that into everyone,
mm,
whether we know
mm,
them or not.
correct. So here's where a couple of things I got from you that I would want to springboard of, and I wrote them down here. It's, not coming with a stronger or a bigger gun. So the Bible even says a soft answer turns away wrath, right? It's and I've had this occur in marriage. It has occurred in conversation with friends. It works every single time it happens, where someone is. Okay, I remember this. We were, so Verla and I, misunderstanding, right? She's angry at me, and we're sitting down. I still remember I'm against the closet door, and she is on the bed. I'm against the door to the bathroom, right? So I'm leaning against it. And I can't stand it. Da, 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 da. And I looked at her and said, you know what? She says, what? I said, we're gonna stay married no matter what, right? She goes, yeah. I said, is this thing gonna break us up? She says, no, it's not. I said, okay. I said, why not? Let's just fast forward to the part where we love, instead of staying here in this place where you're angry. Let's just fast forward there. And she looked at me. She said, that's dumb. I want to talk. I'm like, nah, girl. Let's just fast forward, because I didn't want to go through the process of talking. I said, my soft answer instead, where I could have been, da 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 da, we're going back and forth. All I said was, honey, let's just jump back to love. Let's jump over this place where we're talking and fussing, and just get to this place called love. And it diffused that argument, right? But not every time, because sometimes I want to be the one to, I want to talk, I got to talk my heart. But when you brought the president, I this morning I was listening to something, and I don't talk politics. I don't do politics. I don't do it. But I tell you, I have to feel, I'm empathetic to the president during this time, because it's so easy for us to sit here, watch how we play, watching a ball game. I see the court, I'm watching it, and I'm looking, and I say, huh, man, you should have passed the ball to the left side. Man, what's wrong with you? The man was free. But guess what?
You're watching from the bird's eye view.
I'm watching from the bird's eye view. I'm not in the battle. And then somebody might say, well, he doesn't listen to people. Yeah, yeah, that's true. Given all those different things, you become president. Let's see what you do. Right? Let me
Yeah,
become president.
absolutely.
Let me see what I'm going to do, because I will say today, open up the country, and then when somebody comes to tell me something wrong, okay, close it. Behooves me to be quiet. True, right? To be calm and say, you know what? Let me be introspective and get all the information. But this thing has moving parts. Has so many moving parts that it's not funny. And you said we boot camp in this place, and what I'm hearing in this whole conversation is empathy, right? Is empathy. It's understanding where the other person is. Because if we don't understand where the other person is, I think it's been selfish. We're thinking
Mm.
about self. We are selfish. So you said that, and I'm not even going to think why you said it, and I'm just going to be in my corner and why not pause for a second and go, where are you coming from with that? What's your story? What's the story you're telling yourself? I remember I'm in a meeting with a counterpart, a collaborator, and she says something, and I go, where did that come from? Because I don't think I'm gonna do that. So I remembered, but I didn't state it. I put it in the parking lot. We kept on talking. A couple of weeks passed, and I said, hey, tell me, why did you say what you said on that day? And I gave her the perfect scenario because I remembered it. And she goes, well, let me think about it. I'm like, okay. She thought about it. She got back to me. She was telling herself a story that wasn't true about me in that particular conversation. And she said, well, I thought you were saying blah, 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 blah. So I came to a conclusion and stated what you said. And I said, no, I wasn't thinking that. I was thinking this way and not that way. And she goes, oh my goodness, I'm so happy that we're mature to come and have a conversation together to understand exactly what you were saying. So some of us don't have that ability to come back to talk about the story. But we do have the ability, being there at the present time, to say, let me pause. My heuristic in this case, if somebody is saying something I don't understand, is stop, verify, ask the question. Why are you saying what you're saying? Let me hear what they're saying, and then we can go on from there after we've level set, right? So
Right.
so 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 empathy, level setting, understanding, where they're coming from, and not being selfish. I think those are places that we can engage from.
I love what you said about your conversation with your wife, because I think that says it all. It's like, what's the ultimate outcome? Is this for us to be apart, or is this for us to move together? And I think that's the thing, is when we're in a situation, it's really about kind of when we work with clients, one of the things we do is, well, I'm sure you do, I know I do,
Hmm.
is we go and say, well, what is the visionary outcome you're going for? And we work backwards,
Correct.
right? What are you shooting for? We have to know what that is first, because otherwise we're just making, where are we going?
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
and I think that that's something that's always important. I know that occurred to me in this instance I was just talking about. It's like, okay, how do I want to see this work out, right? In the
Hmm.
ideal situation in my mind, what's the vision that I want to bring to my actions,
Wow.
right? Is it to further disengage from from this person, or is it to try to find engagement, whether I'm successful or not? I mean, I'm not gonna hinge it on expectations on creating exactly that, but I am
Hmm.
gonna work towards that, because it takes
Hmm.
two, right? um, but I think that's the thing, is like, and we're going to make decisions differently when we choose,
Either.
disengagement from
Correct.
engagement,
Correct.
right? We really
Correct.
want to keep engaged, to keep connected. I know with
Mm.
one of my things, and I was sharing this with my husband, through this whole thing, because he's like, he's in this group as well. And so, you know, he got a little hot under the collar watching his wife get bashed.
Correct.
But he stood off and he's like, you know, I wanted to just kind of put my own 2 cents, but you can take care of it yourself. And I realized that was just more of a, you know, an internal hubby thing.
Yes.
But which I appreciate. But I think I said to him, I said, you know, one of the things that I think is beautiful about these opportunities is it does allow us to see, like you were saying before, and watching a game, we can get the full view of the field, whereas the person on the field only gets their little boxed view.
Correct.
Is that we really can actually choose to have a bird's eye view if we want. Even though we're engaged in it, we can choose to get perspective and sit back, right? Again, to your point of not being selfish. Yes. If I'm in my selfish phase, if this is how I'm hearing this story and how I feel about it and what I want to say and how I want this to go, that's selfish. But if it's like, okay, this is what I'm hearing, this is how I'm feeling about it, this is where I'd like to take things, and I want to engage with that to find out where the other person is. First of all, are they saying what I'm hearing? Second of all, what is their intention in this engagement? Is it just to be right? Is it the 4 things that they talk about in gratitude training, which my husband does? Is, you know, are they just trying to be right, look good, be safe, or be comfortable? Right? Is it one of those things, or maybe all to some degree? Because that's ego. We do things out of ego when we're trying to be right, when we're trying to, you know, basically be in control, right? Look good, you know, be comfortable and be safe. So is that what they're going for? And to your point of brokenness, if we engage in the people and the person or the people are continuing to show that they are in that space of one or all of those 4 things. Yeah. That's the brokenness, right? That's the reptilian brain of fight or flight, the ego protecting itself. We can also have the perspective of saying, okay, this is the arena I'm dealing with. I'm not actually engaging one-on-one in an equal partnership in this conversation. Yes. I'm feeling differently, but it doesn't have to shift how I am choosing to be and show up. Yes. Right? And I think that's the thing. That's where maybe there's more empathy that needs to be had. But it's stretching us. I think this is an amazing time of being literally stretched, because a lot of people say, I'm not capable of that. I mean, you are capable. You may need to take baby steps. Yes. But you're capable. Otherwise, the situation wouldn't be presenting itself to you. Like, I believe it's for us because we're ready. Whether we allow ourselves to be ready and to learn to be capable, right? To learn and to see ourselves, oh, wow, look at me doing this. I guess I'm capable, right? We want experiential knowledge. You know, the fact of the matter is we're capable of so much more than we think we're capable of.
So you know what I just heard? I heard a homework. So and it's for us, it's for those who are viewing. The homework is this. I hear, you know how people come out, people are saying, oh, when I get out of COVID-19, I'm going to be 19 pounds larger, right? Because I'm just eating, I'm doing this. I think the homework here, and I'm getting my pen also.
Yeah, I'm getting my...
The homework is, as we're engaging, how empathetic can we become or be towards the other person? Pause, listen, and see how it turns out. Instead of knee-jerk reply the way we usually reply. Because I think, and that's it, right? In our engagements, instead of knee-jerking, let's be empathetic. Let's see how it turns out. Let's ask the questions on, is this person coming from a place? Because even in marriage, your spouse, familiarity, because we think we know our spouses when they talk and ask, or our friends, they talk and ask, we decide the route of where that came from. And it's and when you make those assumptions, you are coming out wrong out of the park, right? So let's look at let's do that homework and see where where it leads us, where it takes us in terms of engaging and truly becoming. I think that adds, something just hit me. It adds another level of listening, of active listening. Because if you're listening to the person speak, and while they're speaking, you say, let me find out why they're speaking this way. You will stop, don't receive, but listen. And when you hear it, you go, hold up, the thing that you said just now, why did you say it? Right? Why did you do it? And did I do something that caused? Oh, when I did this, I wasn't meaning to slap you. I was just wiping my face. If you you mistook it to think I was imaginary slapping you.
It's not
Oh,
shooting you. That's like, hey man, what's going
I
on?
know. There you go. There you see. That is so true. And how many wars? How many battles will we circumvent? How many would we squash? How many friendships that you have broken? And I'm talking to us and you listening. How many friendships have you stopped because of the story you told yourself? Right? How many?
That is such important language. I mean, I love Brene Brown's book, Dare to Lead. It has
Mhm.
some really great, she calls it rumble language for crucial conversations,
Gotcha.
and it's always about ownership, right? So what we hear and what we give meaning to, we get to take ownership of,
Mm.
right? So when we're listening and also sharing, it's about literally saying things like, what I heard you say was, or the story I am making up about what you just said
Mhm.
is, right? Literally using language that owns our own piece, right? And that's I preamble a lot of crucial conversations that way. It's like, I would love to share something with you that's on my heart or on my mind, and I just want to preamble it by saying I own all of my own emotions over it. I own all of the stories I'm making up
Mm.
about this,
Mm. Mm.
right? And I simply am sharing so that you know where I am. Again, engagement because you matter, right? I am
Wow.
engaging, I am choosing engagement with you because you, the human you, matter to me. Aside from what I think you said, aside from behaviors I think you were behaving in that I didn't
Mm.
like, let's say, aside from all of that, I'm choosing to engage because of you as the human being you are. And I own all these other aspects. So I'm sharing with you that when you said this, the story I made up was X, Y, and Z. And I own that I started, based on that story, I started to feel, not you made me feel, right? There's
Mhm.
nobody can make you feel. They can't reach into your body and go, okay, I'm
Correct.
making you feel certain way, right?
Correct. Correct.
We choose to feel, right? And because of the story I made up, I chose to feel this way about it. And I wanted to share that with you. How does that change the dynamics of a conversation? Because now the person's not coming with when you said that, when you acted that way, you made me feel. We're saying, I made this up, I said this. And that is a very easy way for somebody to step and go, oh, you made up that story about that. That's not at all what I was saying.
Ah,
Right? And
but
they don't feel attacked. They actually
correct.
feel bad for you. It's like, oh
Correct.
my gosh, you've been telling yourself this story. That's not the story I was saying. That's not the story I was telling. I'm so
So
sorry you felt that way.
I gotta cut you off to ask this question now. That's somebody's listening here, and I can't click to me. Somebody's listening, or that's you, Traci. That's you because you understand relationships. You've had years of studying blah blah blah. So I want you. I'm putting you in a spot right now. I want you
Hot seat.
a hot seat, right? I want you to give the the quick the quick way of having that conversation because what you told me, I'm imagining the scenario is a settled scenario. A settled scenario for me is is you have talked, you have conversed, the issue has occurred, you still have time to come back to it, and then you come and say this. What happens if it happens, boom? How would you suggest that engagement should go?
So actually that, what I just said before can work at any time. It's not just coming back and saying, so if you said something to me right in this moment, and then I was making up this, oh my gosh, he just totally, you know, said something rude to me, right? I could say, after you stopped talking, right, give you the time, right? Because you might have just said something and not finished your sentence. And if I had listened to the rest of your sentence in context, it wouldn't have sounded the way it did when I just listened to half of what you said, right?
Correct.
So I give it the full time, right? And then I say, may I ask a question, or may I share some feedback? I always do this, even with my clients. You know, my clients are hiring me to give my feedback. I still always ask, right? So if I hear something in what they're saying, I will always premise it with, would you like to know what I'm hearing, or may I give you some feedback?
Okay.
Right? And so that's a big thing is may I ask a couple questions, or may I provide some feedback based on the story I'm telling myself right now about what you just said.
I want to pop in quickly again. So I'm rapid firing you today, right? That's a controlled environment, because you told me, you said it's your client, right? You can ask, this is you and I, vernacular jargon changes based on where we are, right?
Yes.
So if I'm playing, I'm on a field, or I am with a best friend that I'm asking for someone, because I get you, Traci. I understand exactly what you're saying, but I'm trying to be I'm trying to give. I know we don't look at questions when we're doing this to find out what people are thinking. We do come after, so because it's a conversation we're having with me and you. That's what it's about. It's not about bringing another person in, but we do come back and read the questions you answer and answer them. But somebody may be saying, yeah, but I mean, all of that still, but if it's something that just came from left field,
That's like, yes, what happened the other day.
Correct.
Total left field.
So what would you suggest? What are coping mechanisms? What's a way that I could stop for a second and think, where is this person coming from? Because it's happening. I'm in it. It's me somebody who says, oh, I am so holy, I cannot curse. And when it's stumped at toe,
that's like what my friends always say, they know when I'm mad because every other word is a foul word. And that's the only time I ever curse, is when I'm upset.
So there you go. When somebody stumped their toe on you with that, what can I do? What can I say at that moment? What's my
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, not necessarily verbatim what I said, but that's exactly what happened in this situation the other day that I was referencing. I shared something, and it was ironic because it was literally something where I shared it with my husband. He's like, oh, did you share it in the group? And I was like, no, I didn't think to. He's like, yeah, I don't think there's some people in there that might, be interested in hearing that. I was like, okay. So literally,
it's his fault.
No, not at all. It wasn't like intention, like you people need to know this. I mean, it was nothing. That was like, oh, okay, I'll share.
Correct.
And then suddenly the first thing I get is just like, rah! And I was like, whoa, that's surprising. So the first thing I did is I went back and looked at what I wrote, which was literally, thought I'd share this. That was it. And so I'm like, well, no, it's not what I said. And then I read what the other person put. And this was in real time. This wasn't like an hour and a half later. This was, they had just sent something and I happened to be on there. I was like, oh, okay, I'm engaging.
Correct.
Or I'm choosing to or not. And I chose to, and I said, oh, actually, this is what the information is as I saw it. And this is the reason why I thought to share it. It was simply, curious and a slant on things. And I thought it was interesting. So then the person says, well, but I find it to be blah, 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 blah. That was when it was like, oh, I said, well, and I honor you. I honor your opinion and your take. And I hear you. And again, I certainly didn't share it to cause controversy or to, but I hear what the way you're taking it.
Yeah.
Certainly not the intention that I had when I shared it. And at the same time, I think maybe this is a great opportunity for us to lean into something where we obviously are looking at things differently and talk about that. And then it just went downhill from there. And so what I started to do is exactly what it was just like, no, I find this to be, dangerous information. I mean, it just really got to the point where I was like, wow, okay, this person is definitely reading this totally differently.
Wow.
And so I said, well, what I hear is that you feel that you're scared about this. Is that true? And it's like, I'm not scared about anything. I know that my side is right. And da, 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 da. And I said, okay. But I don't think this is about right or wrong. I think this is about sharing. And again, usually when we only want to see one side of the story, it's because looking at the other side scares us in some way. And I said, I'm not trying to make you feel vulnerable or anything like that. I'm just saying, I understand. I understand if this scared you. Right. And this person did not want, this person's a male. So I think part of it was like, I don't want some female to tell me I'm scared or, I mean, he just was really acting in this place. And I said, and that's fair. I honor that. I'm not going to share anything else, knowing how you feel about things. This was not a willing thing. But what I'm hearing is that you're reacting to how you feel about the information. Right. And I hear you. I understand that this is your reaction to the information. I just want you to know I shared the information simply to share it. Gotcha. I didn't share it to be right. I didn't share it to try to jam it down someone's throat. I didn't share it in reaction to other information out there. I didn't share it for any other reason other than to share it. And I think you've voiced yourself pretty loud, loud and clear. I understand. And again, I thank you for sharing. Right. I thank you for sharing what's on your mind. And so that was with a person who didn't want to engage back, didn't want to show me the same care and concern. Correct. Right. As I was showing him. But at the same time, I kept in the forefront of my mind, I know he's scared. The only reason we lash out at people who we know and would normally be very kind to is because we're scared. That's the only, we're in fear. That's the only reason we do that as human beings. It's amazing what people will do when they're afraid. I mean, people will kill people because they're afraid. They'll kill people they love and know because of fear. Like we've seen this happen throughout history. They'll turn on loved ones out of fear. And so that's when people talked about in the beginning, I know there's a lot of conversations about COVID being one, a virus that we needed to be careful about, but more people were saying the pandemic is really a fear-based. Not to say that COVID was about just fear, but to say what they were worried about was not the COVID, but the fear that was running rampant, because we know COVID is not killing everybody, but fear can kill a lot more people than COVID ever could. If it escalates. And I think that's precisely what people have been feeling and sharing. And, and I think part of that is just to say, I honor that. I honor that you were feeling afraid. I'm not making fun of that. I'm not trying to look down on you. I'm really saying, I'm sorry that this triggered fear in you. And I see you, I see that. And a lot of people really have are uncomfortable with being seen. Right? Because they feel like somehow it makes them look less, that they're afraid to be seen as broken. And my whole point is, I'm broken too. I mean, I'm broken just by your comments, but I was broken before we engaged, it's none of us are perfect. And I think, but if we feel that we have justification to act from our brokenness, that's when I worry. Right?
So you talked about fear, and I just thought about the economics of fear, right? And the economics of fear is astounding. It's what ifs, people playing what ifs in their minds, what if, and then going down that rabbit hole. What most of the things you worry about will never happen, right? So
Yeah.
they say, why worry? But I fear feeds off information, right? It's what you whatever information you get. So in your case, you had given him information that, whew, this is fearful. With fear feeds off information, what we watch. We sat and watched high there's a movie on Netflix now, High Grass or something, is a thriller, and I get through with it. I'm like, gosh, I gotta keep the grass cut. Right, because I had to be humorous to get rid of what happened in the movie. So it's what we watch, what we hear, the company we keep. And it's not even the fear. Then there's the economics of faith, the economics of being fearless. That makes you stand up and say, hey, come what may, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this because I have this higher power. For me, I have God, I have Jesus, I have the Holy Spirit within me, I have the anointing in me to do and conquer because I'm a conqueror. But as I said this, I thought about something we stated earlier about dominion and conquering man, and just being, and women being. And I remember my brother told me, I know I told him, I said, hey man, I'm collaborating with a lady. And he said that's the smartest thing you can ever do. So I'm like, why? He says, man, women, women in business. And I think some guys may come across and comment and type and say, man, you're wrong. You say whatever you want to say. I'm talking, it's on you.
Right. We won't be censored on this one.
Yeah, I know. Women in business or women collaborating with men in anything brings in two different mindsets that, when it's balanced, creates something that's a mastermind. Don't go in it alone. Don't go in it with yourself, right? Because I'm one-dimensional. As three-dimensional I may think I am one-dimensional. Whereas you are also one-dimensional. When we bring that two, it brings a third, and we become three-dimensional. And that thing just sets us apart to do things that to balance off each other. So just what you said, right? The black and white, the yin and the yang. I say yin and yang. You said yin and yang. Pronounce it again.
Oh, yin yang. Yeah, it's kind of like tomato, and
So y'all listen, the yin yang, y'all. So so it's those two things just coming into balance, and anything that's balanced works.
that's right.
Right? Anything
I
in
love
balance.
that. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And especially when each individual, the male and the female in the situation, are in their best versions. Right? And it doesn't mean perfect, right? This doesn't mean not broken. It means best versions by choice. We can
Correct.
still be broken and act unbrokenly, right? Act beautifully. And
Correct.
that's the piece, is that, when we bring the highest form of those yin yang energies within ourselves to the table, right? The third option, the third dimension that we create will be its best version, right?
Correct.
Because you can also see where men and women can come together and create things that are not so nice. You see
Oh
that
yeah,
in some
definitely.
marriages and other things where
Yeah.
it just the less ideal versions of themselves come together and create a third less ideal version.
Correct.
So and I think that that's the key piece, is that we have to be intentional in ourselves, because if we bring our best self forward, then with that other person bringing their best self forward, we create a third dimension that is of its best value.
Wow.
So
Wow.
yeah, I agree. That's why I like to work with men, because men naturally, in fact, when things go down, my go-to people are always men. Always. I have a couple female friends that I go to, but because they act more like men, they don't
Gotcha.
they don't let me go down the path of emotional drama. And I'm not an emotionally dramatic person to begin with, but I think when we're triggered, sometimes we can make it about the, and then they said, and then she said, and he said,
Yes.
and they keep me in that place that I prefer, which is the, what was said, what did I make up about what was said?
Correct.
Where is that person? And what, more importantly, what's the lesson and what's the solution? You know,
Wow.
when this whole thing I mentioned happened, I called one of my good friends within the group, who's a guy, a very rational thinker, used to be a teacher. So he's really good at kind of discerning and picking out the key elements of things. And I just said, I'm bringing this to you because I know you are really great at keeping me in that right headspace. Work out all the pieces so that I come up with a solution that I'm comfortable with. And so we talked through it, and he said something that I thought was really great, that because I don't spend a lot of time on social media, he says, well, I didn't happen to see it in the group because I'm not on social media. And he says, and I'll tell you why. He said, the thing about social media is it's this animal that creates a strange thing within us as human beings. He said, from a psychological standpoint, he goes, I bet you if that back and forth was on an email, that person in our group would have never attacked you the way he did. But this is funny thing that happens when we speak on the internet is we're not speaking to the person. We're speaking to a larger audience. And for some reason, we feel we need to take a stance when we speak to a larger audience.
Correct.
And that was the thing too, because there was a third party involved with this. At first, it was a woman who responded as, oh, I feel scared by this. I don't want this here because I feel scared. And I want you all to take it off because I feel scared, kind of thing. And he was actually trying to protect her. So it brought up in him this protective thing. And you know, the first thing I saw in this dynamic was we have a victim, we have a savior, and they're looking for a perpetrator. Because in the disempowerment dynamic, that's how disempowerment happens. When there's a victim, there's somebody who plays savior, but the third position has to be perpetrator, because there has to be somebody who caused the issue that the savior has to save the victim from. And I decided, I'm like, I'm not going to be the perpetrator because I'm not perpetrating anything here. So everything I did was with a very straight focus on not putting myself in this position of perpetrator, because that's not where I was coming from. They wanted everything they were doing, not consciously, because they're good people. It was all from fear, was to make me perpetrator. You said this and you did that and this did this to me. And that, you know, I was like, no, that's not what I did. And this is what was going on. So it just was interesting because he said, I think that's the thing, is that when we're doing things on social media, and it allowed me to step back and say, this is why I don't post things other than business or whatever, is because it's not going to be received in the same way as if I were to share it with an individual or with a group of people even in an email or in a different way, because of that psychological dynamic that happens when we do something even though this was a closed group, it was still a public forum because there was more than just us
just
there.
The two of you. So my dear, so today we've come to another one.
Gosh, have we really? Holy cow.
Yeah. And this is where I think if I could sing, I would sing Boys to Men, End of the Road. But I'm not going to do it because people will.
Come on.
No, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you?
I don't know your singing voice, though.
No.
I mean, it's Boys to Men we're talking about here. I mean, really, like, how much can you, like, come on.
Girl, you can't, you will shut this thing down in a second if I go ahead and do that. But all I wish you is you know, blessings and new thoughts, you know, more empathy. I wish you that your whatever concerns that you have, notice I said concerns are not worries, come to pass in a positive way. I pray blessings over your pockets. I pray blessings over your pockets, you know, just a cash flow increase, and, you know, to everybody who's listening, who, you know, just blessings on you. And those are my closing remarks.
I love that. I would add too, because I always feel abundance, right? That's what I would hope for everybody to feed into, the abundance that's available to all of us. I mean, this is We have abundant answers and solutions to whatever concerns we have. We have abundant support surrounding us at all times, even if we feel we're alone. You know, we have an abundance of all things. It's all there. It's whether we choose to receive it. And so I really like what you said, because it does make me feel like, okay, yeah, what's the abundant solution, right? How can we do this in a way where we're taking responsibility for our peace, we're listening with empathy, and we're really tapping into the abundant nature of the lesson at hand, right? It's trying to grow us in such a way that's going to help us expand and build our capacity.
Yes, 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 yes. And no, don't let us start another topic, because you said a word just now that triggered. In order to build capacity, you have to either go deep or wide. And which means to go deep or wide, you have to dig something and make space for something. So which means you got bye.
I love that.
You take care, and see you guys later on.